Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, and where we give you guys a first perspective on things and how we see them. In today's episode, I'm going to be reacting to the NBA preseason schedule and also the fact that the Lakers and Clippers are going to be tipping it off on opening night. So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, be sure to check out our Dreamerspro Podcast, which is linked in the description below. So with that being said, let's just get into the topic here. So it turns out that the NBA released their schedule last night. Now we're producing this video on November 28th, so it all depends really when you're going to see this. But they released their preseason schedule. They have not released their the regular season schedule. I don't know what that is yet. I'm very curious to see what the opening night matchups are going to be. I have some thoughts, but I'm waiting for them to come out with that. So I'm waiting for that. But for now, they've released that schedule, and it came out last night. And there were a few things that actually stood out to me on the schedule. The first one is, the major one is that they have the Clippers and Lakers playing against each other on, let's say, NBA preseason opening night. Now, let's first of all talk about the ratings in the bubble. The NBA bubble and the NBA Finals had some of the lowest ratings of all time. Number one, I believe that had to do with the fact that there was this big hype between the Clippers and Lakers. People didn't get to see that because the Clippers got bounced out of the playoffs in the second round by the Denver Nuggets in 7 games. So the hype leading up to that, though, I think there was a big letdown. So a lot of people just kind of fell off. Then you also have the fact that when it got to the NBA Finals, it wasn't the prototypical matchup we all expected. We would have probably expected Giannis in the finals, or even sexier matchup would have probably been the Lakers and the Celtics. But we didn't get that. Instead, we got the Lakers versus the Miami Heat. And in the beginning, the Lakers were overwhelming favorites. Then the Miami Heat ended up losing their number one scorer in the playoffs, in Goran Dragic. I hope I'm pronouncing his name, saying his name right. So he was gone, and it just kind of took even more air out of the bubble. Like, more people were like, this is not even competitive anymore. Why am I even watching this? And that was the general sentiment. Like, it wasn't even exciting anymore because it was just Jimmy Butler and a rookie and Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, and that was it basically. But it was just the Jimmy Butler show. And the Miami Heat were able to make it interesting. Even going 6 games, to me, I think is extraordinary. But given the fact that the Lakers were so loaded, I'm surprised they even went 6. I mean, think about it. 6 games with such a depleted roster. So I think because of that and the fact that the finals were just it was very anticlimactic. Now, maybe a lot of Miami Heat fans were happy to see their team in the finals, but overall, like, I think all of us wanted that series to go 5-6 games, so at least it would become more interesting. I mean, given the fact that the other team was just so beat up. So I think when the NBA saw that, given the fact that the ratings in the bubble was also lower, I think what they decided to do was, now that there's going to be a traditional season, I think they want to go back to the original cash cow. Now, some people may have forgotten the fact that the Lakers versus Clippers, the Battle of LA, was the number one storyline in the season, in the NBA last season. All of last season, that was the number one storyline. It doesn't matter what you say. That's what the whole buildup was for. That was the opening night matchup. That was the Christmas Day matchup. Even when the season started again in the Orlando bubble, it was part of one of the games in there. So that was the number one matchup. And I think the NBA is trying to generate some interest in the sport again by having that game. Now, granted, there are going to be other games slated on the schedule. We're going to have the Orlando Magic versus the Atlanta Hawks for people that are interested in that. Then you have the Detroit Pistons versus the Knicks. I mean, I don't know who's excited to see the Knicks play. You have the Houston Rockets versus the Bulls. I'm definitely not going to watch that game. Then you have the Clippers versus Lakers, and then you have the Sacramento Kings versus the Portland Trail Blazers. I think the game of the preseason opener is going to be the Clippers versus the Lakers. Now, obviously, some players might not even play. LeBron may not even play, right? There's a possibility of that. And if he does play, players are not going to play full minutes. It's not like as if this game is going to decide who's going to win the NBA title. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I think the NBA is starting to go back to the original storyline that's probably going to generate the most interest going into the season. Zion Williamson is already here. It's not like as if they're going to, boost Zion Williamson or promote him that much. He's already here. We already saw him. But I think this may be the number one storyline going into the season. And I think that's the reason simply why the NBA decided to go with this game for the opening to open the preseason, because I think his debut is the premier matchup. Now let's talk about Kawhi Leonard and no, first of all, let's talk about the fact that some people may think that, oh, it's not really that deep. Like, why are they picking them? Well, for some people that think the Clippers may be a fluke, or they're not really a good team, or they're not all of that. My question to you is, if that's true, why didn't the NBA pick the Lakers versus the Heat? Or why didn't they pick them versus the Denver Nuggets, for example? That's the team that beat the Clippers, right? Why didn't they pick the Denver? Because we all know that the Denver Nuggets, although they beat the Clippers, if the Clipper on the right day under normal circumstances, they're not better than the Clippers. I mean, we all know that. That's the reason why most of us picked them to beat the Nuggets, like, simple and plain. Now, some people may say, well, let them play again, and I think the Nuggets will win. I don't think so. I never thought so then, and I definitely don't think so now. So the NBA knows that some people don't want to sort of give the Clippers their credit for being a legitimate threat in the Western Conference, given the fact that most of the team was injured. The key players were injured all of last season, barely practiced together. They still had a number 2 record in the Western Conference, not even in the East. In the Western Conference, they were still the number 2 seed, even ahead of the Denver Nuggets. Now, another thing to say, LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard is a real thing. It's a real matchup. It generates real interest, and we're going to do another video on it. But some people seem to kind of not know that. Some people don't know that Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James actually have a rivalry. Some people don't realize that. They don't realize that these two guys have actually met in the NBA Finals multiple times. They don't know that Kawhi Leonard has actually won the majority of the games that he played against LeBron head to head. Most people don't know, or most people don't want to admit that. They're like, some people out there don't want to understand that. Yes, LeBron James is a greater player overall in the history of the NBA. No one's going to say that, ranking him all time. He's probably I would say he's probably top 5 or so. I'll probably put him in the top 5, right? If I do an NBA top 10 list, he'll probably be in the top 5. If I have to sit down and really think about it, yes, he'll be in the top 5. So it's not like as if I'm saying LeBron James is not an all-time great. He is an all-time great, and in all-time he's ranked much higher than Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi's not even in the top 10 all-time. He has a lot more to do, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's going into his prime, and LeBron James has pretty much played his entire career. LeBron is 6 years older than Kawhi Leonard, just so you guys know that. So, and Kawhi just entered his prime 2 or 3 years ago. So, but it's a real thing. These guys have met in the finals before. It's not like I said they met in the playoff. They've met in the finals. And I think there's a mutual respect between the two of them because they beat each other before. LeBron beat Kawhi. Kawhi beat LeBron in the finals. So I think it's a real thing. And I think Kawhi Leonard is a real competitor. I think he sees LeBron James as an adversary. Obviously, he must have respect for him. LeBron must have respect for Kawhi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted him to even play with him. So for me, I think that's the most eye-opening thing when I had to react to the schedule. Now, some people may see other things in the schedule and react differently. It all depends on you. So the question is, looking at this NBA preseason schedule, although we know it's a preseason, these games do not matter at all. It's just I think it's just to ramp up the excitement, get players to see NBA basketball again. I think that's really what it's all about. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about this preseason schedule? What do you think about some of the things that I said? If you disagree with me, let me know why. If you agree with me, let me know why. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and also don't forget to check out our Dreamerspro Podcast, which we have linked in the description below. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day. Peace.